In its most simple form, a meritocracy is a system in which individuals are assigned to positions of power, influence, or reward solely based on their abilities. But then that raises a question. What happens when merit meets investment? Who will win the battle of priority? That is something that the Carolina Panthers are going to have to answer very, very soon, as they have a young undrafted receiver that continues to turn heads while they have a first round wide receiver that continues to raise questions. So in this video, I'm going to go over both those things. We're going to talk about Xavier Legette as well as Jalen Coker, and I'm going to tell you who I believe should be the priority moving forward for this team, and we're going to get into all of that right after this.
I'm from the foe. You dig?
Welcome to The Way I See It with Jamario Rashad. This is a Carolina Panthers fan channel. Please do me a favor by hitting the like button, and please make sure you subscribe as I am on my road to 3K. Trying to make sure my channel continues to grow before this season gets going. And just a quick note, as I mentioned in my previous video, from this moment all the way up until the beginning of December, any revenue generated for this channel will be donated and matched by me and my wife-to-be to buy as many Angel Tree gifts or sponsor as many Angel Tree children as we can. We are blessed to be in the position we're in, and we would like to give back to the community, especially the young kids out there. So thank you so much for contributing to that. I truly, truly appreciate that. So now let's get into some football. So the first thing I want to talk about before we get into the actual verses of it all is investment. Now, investment is what you put into something and hope that you get a good return on your investment, a good turnover, saying what I put into this, I hope to get more out of it. So what have the Carolina Panthers invested into these two young players that we are going to discuss today? The first we are going to talk about is wide receiver Xavier Legette, a guy that has become much more famous off the field than he has on the field so far. That is not a slight. That's actually a shout out to XL. Go out there, get your money, get your exposure, live your life, young guy. I don't give a damn. Do your thing. But in terms of football, Xavier Legette is somebody that the Carolina Panthers invested both a 2024 32nd pick and the 200th overall pick to move up into the final spot in the first round to select Xavier Legette, giving him a fully guaranteed $2.3 million contract and ensuring that we do have the fifth-year option to, extend his services for as long as possible before giving him an extension and keeping him on the team if he does so earn that position. Now, the other player that we are going to juxtapose him with is a guy that was a undrafted player that made the team initially, was cut, made it through 32 teams of waivers, made it all the way back to the Carolina Panthers just to be re-signed to the practice squad and eventually given, the undrafted contract, would come in after all these injuries and all of these mishaps with all of the other wide receivers and all of the terrible things that were going on with the 2024 Panthers. And we are talking about Jalen Coker. Now, originally it was reported that Jalen Coker was given a nice hefty sum of a undrafted free agent contract, as he is somebody that was prioritized, somebody that got to choose where he wanted to go, and the Carolina Panthers rewarded him handsomely for doing so. What goes underreported is that original contract goes away as soon as he's cut from the team and has to clear waivers. When he comes back to the team, a completely new contract is signed after that. So at this point, Jalen Coker is on he was originally on a longer term 3-year deal, but now he has a 2-year deal with absolutely no guarantees whatsoever. So in terms of financial commitment as well as an investment with draft capital, Xavier Legette so far exceeds what the Carolina Panthers have invested in Jalen Coker, that one would assume, and it would be easy to assume, that the Carolina Panthers should just continue to invest all of their time and all of their development and all of their aspirations for what this offense may be in the future, or in the near future at least, put all of that into Xavier Legette. But that raises the question of, if football is the ultimate meritocracy, what happens when this undrafted free agent outplays this guy that you have a fully guaranteed contract invested into, that you have that you have put several draft picks into, that you're hoping to come in and help your struggling second year your struggling second year quarterback in Bryce Young. What happens, and to give you a little more context on this in terms of how much they've invested into Xavier Legette. The Buffalo Bills, it came out, or, we never know for certain, but it was reported that they were going to pick Keon Coleman the entire time. But the reason that Dan Morgan and Brant Tillis prioritized moving into the first round was to get that fifth year option. In doing so, they fully guaranteed his contract, as just one pick later, the Bills did not have to guarantee Keon Coleman's contract. They did not have to fully guarantee Keon Coleman's contract, and he does not have the fifth-year option. So that gives you a little peek behind the curtain, or a little more context as to just how much the Carolina Panthers were into this guy, wanting to, although it wasn't that big of an investment to move up, looking towards the future, they saw, or they assume, that this guy is going to play out. So, one would assume that they want that to work out. They do not want to make an investment and then, give up a few years in. They want to see their investment work out. But then we talk about the merit that gets on the field, the merit that we see on the field. And I want to take you all to this next section, and we will talk about the performances that the two of these guys actually put forth out there during their rookie seasons. As you can see here, Xavier Legette played in all 16 games, while Jalen Coker only played in 11. So Xavier Legette had 5 total more games than Jalen Coker. But if you look down at the bottom, he started in 9 more games than Jalen Coker. And the opportunities were just heavily weighed in Xavier Legette's favor. But at the end of the season, the outcomes of these two guys' performances in terms of statistics were not that different, which raises a lot of questions, reasonably so. If Jalen Coker has nearly half as many targets as Xavier Legette, but he's less than 20 yards, but overall on the season he only has about 20 yards less, one could only assume, and many could surmise, that if he were getting the opportunities that Xavier Legette got last season, this offense would have looked a lot better than it would have, and his stats would have so far outperformed Xavier Legette that it would have made picking him before him look a bit negligible. So you have to ask the question, is giving in to the merit of Jalen Coker simply being a better wide receiver, is that worth admitting that you were wrong? Is that worth giving up, knowing that you invested all these picks, knowing that you're still on the hook fully guaranteed for at least 3 more years? I say, if football is the ultimate meritocracy, Jalen Coker should have the opportunity to work his way up to be that second wide receiver on this roster. Everybody knows that we drafted Teteroa McMillan to be number 1. Nobody thinks that Jalen Coker is going to threaten him as the number 1 wide receiver whatsoever. But in terms of moving forward, who should be the outright number 2? Merit says that should be Jalen Coker, but the investment says that should be Xavier Legette. So what exactly should the Carolina Panthers do? So in this situation, I'm going to add a little, I'm not going to call it historical context, because it was only, I guess it is historical. I'm getting old. It was about almost 15 years ago. It is not apples to apples, but please try to understand why I'm seeing this the same way and why I'm making these comparisons. So back in 2010, the Pittsburgh Steelers, they drafted Emmanuel Sanders early in the 3rd round, and in that same year, they would go on to draft Antonio Brown in the sixth round. During their rookie seasons, Emmanuel Sanders had nearly 400 yards after getting, I believe, about 50 targets. Antonio Brown only had 19 targets on the season. During that same rookie season, a 25-year-old Mike Wallace had 1,250 yards and 10 touchdowns, and a 34-year-old Hines Ward had 755 yards and 5 touchdowns. They had wide receivers. They had the vet, i.e. supposedly Adam Thielen. They had a guy that was already out there supposedly to be the guy in Mike Wallace. But when you fast forward and turn the clock over to 2011, Antonio Brown, after getting 19 targets as a rookie, led the team in both targets, receiving yards, and touchdowns in his second year because the Pittsburgh Steelers did not deny what their eyes were telling them. They saw this sixth-round guy, this guy that they had less investment into. They saw him outperforming everybody on the roster. They had Hines Ward. They had somebody that is highly lauded that would go on to be one of the all-time great Steeler. They had a young guy in Mike Wallace who was doing his absolute thing out there, but they did not deny the fact that they had a guy on the roster, and Antonio Brown went on to be Antonio Brown from the second year on after only receiving 19 targets as a rookie. So what we saw in Jalen Coker, I don't understand why we would deny what we're seeing. Jalen Coker can be a guy. Is he going to be the number one? No, I'm not saying that. But is he deserving of getting the opportunities that Xavier Legette is getting and probably will get this season, despite the investment that the Carolina Panthers have put into them? Absolutely, he 1000% is, and I won't be told otherwise. So it is a bad day for all of the people that thought Jalen Coker may be on the bubble or whatever BS talk that was about, man. But what do you all think about this situation? Does the Carolina Panthers, or should the Carolina Panthers prioritize their investment over the merit that they've seen out there on the field? Should they do that? And then the next question is, do you think they will do that? Do you think that they will prioritize Excel simply because of who he is, his draft capital? And I'm in no way suggesting that we should give up on the guy, but if football, as I mentioned and as I've heard throughout my life, is the ultimate meritocracy, we would be denying our eyes if we didn't say that Jalen Coker has simply just outperformed Xavier Legette in just about every way, man. So what do you all think about this topic? Should the Carolina Panthers go ahead and just concede that Jalen Coker is the guy? Or do you think that because we've made this investment both financially and with the draft capital that we should continue to prioritize the progression of Excel? Whatever you all think, leave your comments down in the comment section and I'll be sure to get back with you then. But until next time, I am Jamario Rashad. This is the way I see it, and I'm out. Peace.